Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Thursday morning, we've got our Hive interview coming up in a few hours time. But before that, Anthony and I wanted to jump on the podcast, give you guys a mid-morning market update and talk about some recent developments and current events in the Bitcoin mining space. Before we get into it, you know the deal. Smash the like button. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the miners today, if you've been making any purchases this week, and your outlook into the remainder of 2025. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, so that's right. Thursday morning. Anthony, you just needed to correct me. I'd said 99,500 in the intro. Bitcoin now creeping up above $100,000. However, the Bitcoin miners, kind of a mixed bag today, just as many red as green.
Yeah, I mean, it reached 100,000 after the podcast yesterday, and we said imminently, didn't we? I think we either said today or tomorrow, and it's hit 100,000 on both days. So that's another couple of ticks in the box there for our analysis. Getting the timing perfectly right, as always. Never mind the Johnny come latelys out there that during the scene. But yeah, the mining stocks today, I'm a bit surprised. They look a bit suppressed, some of them. But in terms of the green stocks today, we've got the likes of Hut and Soluna, Marathon, and then we've got some in red at the bottom. We've got Wulf, IREN, Gryphon, and Bit Digital. So, as I say, a bit of a mixed bag. Nothing out there, anything derogatory. We're getting another day closer, 4 days to the inauguration. So everything's positive. And yesterday was a good inflow for the ETFs. So we had a few red days in January, a bit of selling off. But bear in mind, if you look at the bigger picture, we had a couple of days where nearly $1 billion in a day was purchased by the ETFs of Bitcoin. I mean, it's just staggering. We told you how, in terms of how much Bitcoin's produced a day, $45 million a day of Bitcoin, and that's $100,000 of Bitcoin. So 45 million is produced a day, and the ETFs were buying effectively nearly 20 times a daily production on 2 consecutive days. And then we had a bit of a pullback, probably about $1 billion has come off the next 4 days, a few red days, and then 700 million plus yesterday. So literally all that Bitcoin that was sold has now been repurchased. And effectively, we're still in the green for January, significantly in the green for January. And bear in mind what was purchased last year. I think we had a short stay price. Was it well over 30 billion in Bitcoin and ETFs last year, which is staggering considering it's the first year. If you go back and look at the gold ETF, gold out there for all you holders of gold, in your safes or in your bank vaults, where you keep it like that. That took years to get literally past a couple of billion mark, and the Bitcoin's done it in months. What gold effectively took years and years and years to do. So here we are in 2025. Bitcoin is now and the future, and it's really showing its resilience there. And I think we'll see it. Again, we'll see it rise as we go through these next 3 or 4 days now through to the inauguration, and maybe a little bit more post that there, because everything's positive around it at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is. We're going to come on to some of the additional adoption we're seeing here in both the political realm and the financial realm in a second. But you bring up a great point, Anthony. The Trump inauguration now on Monday, only 4 days away. We've also got a big day tomorrow with all of the annual option expirations, the January 2025 expiration date. So interesting to see exactly what you mentioned, the miners, both today and yesterday. So tomorrow will be a big one to watch. I know I was busy unwinding all my option trades this morning, Anthony. And then also getting a lot of information about short interest on these companies now. So short interest obviously creeping up on the miners as the bears are out there trying to make money when the stocks decline or pull back. The battle of the bulls and the bears. So maybe if we see a big run in Bitcoin here over the weekend or Monday, that could lead to a short squeeze setup or potential. So definitely some action-packed days in the market over the next few trading sessions. I also wanted to touch on a few changes in verbiage or tone from these companies, Anthony, while we're on the mid-morning market update. So one that struck me was Riot's production update this month. We've already covered the numbers, but the tone and the phrasing of how they're producing this now, saying made in America, CleanSpark, obviously America's Bitcoin miner. A lot of companies are now really trying to associate themselves with made in the USA, USA produced Bitcoin, bases of operation in the United States. We've seen the redomiciling from many of the miners as well. So this is really a change in tone for the miners being so proud to be American and operate in this country.
Very much positivity coming out of there, and good to see. That they've put their total Bitcoin mined in 2024. Nearly 5,000 Bitcoin mined by Riot, and we expect them to increase that amount in 2025 because they've not only increased their hash rate significantly. Bear in mind they're only 12 exahash at the start of January. They're now operating well over 31, get on for 32, and they expect to get that hash target of 35 exahash in very early in this quarter. So with a broader view to getting close to 50 by the end of the year. So this is going to be a big year for Riot. Plus, they've also purchased all new machines from MicroBT as well, and the majority of these machines are fit for purpose from immersion cooling containers that we witnessed when we went down to Corsicana back in June. So really positive. The other thing I'd like to say, 3.4 cents is the all-in net power cost. That's going to take some beating across the board there. That's one of the cheapest. Yes, we do see, CIFR have come out and some of their sites that are able to achieve 2.7. And there's a couple of other miners who have just quoted, I think they're quoting about 3 cents or just under 3 cents now. And, Soluna have also said around about the 3 cents mark. And Gryphon Mining went and bought a gas, I think it was a flared gas facility there with a few megawatts, and that was well under 3. But to be honest with you, if you said 4 to 5 is the average, and probably close to 5 is the average, 3.4 cents is where you want to be to make significant margins and profits, and aligned to that efficiency of those mining machines, that'll put them in a really strong position this year.
Yeah, it certainly will. Now, another great update, again, coming from the United States here, one of our favorites on the channel, Core Scientific, they put out a great tweet talking about installing some of the chillers at the Denton facility. So this is obviously the next step in that retrofit for HPC. This one's interesting, Anthony. I'll bring up the market cap slide here. You can talk through this, but based on the amount of revenue they're now expected to receive in 2025, we are both scratching our heads at Core Scientific market cap right now, specifically as they're getting so close to this revenue creation opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, no, everybody knows now the contract. It's out there in the public domain. There's no hiding those figures. 8.7 billion over the sort of 12 to 13 years of the contract. Net margins on average across the whole period of 71%. And in the first 2 years, they're only taking approximately 30% because they're paying back the capital that is being loaned to them to get this refurbishment done there. So CoreWeave have obviously kindly, put capital forward to help Core Scientific refurbish sites like the Denton site. We were at that facility in June, so that we can recognize those slides on there. We were there for the Investor Day to talk about that very first deal with CoreWeave. But yeah, I mean, this year, they're going to start receiving those revenues through, and in 2 years' time from now, you're then looking at steady state, 550 million a year net profit. That's, I think it's over $1.5 million a day net profit coming in. and some of these miners weren't earning 1.5 million in 3 months. So this is what the market likes. They want predictability. Data centers provide that predictability. HPC revenues are predictable. Bitcoin is a bit volatile. You're not quite sure what you're going to get next, and we've seen that volatility. It's been great the last 2 years, to be honest with you, because since it since it dropped to 15,500 in December 2022, it's literally only gone one way, and it rose from 15.5 to 42 in 2023, and then from 42 all the way up to 93 at the end of 2024, and we're at 100 now, and we've been at 100. I think today's the fifth day that we've breached $100,000. So it looks like it likes that 100,000 now, and maybe it wants to move upwards again. And all the positive news that we've identified already, and what's going to happen over the next week or so, means that it's likely that it's going to continue to rise through this good period.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, Anthony. Michael Saylor gets to have his 100K party 5 times now because it keeps going through the barrier. Hey, one other made in America type theme I just wanted to touch on quick while we have the miners up. We've got Hive coming on in a couple hours time. They've already come out and said they're moving to San Antonio. We saw HOD8 Mining merge with USBTC into HOD8 Corp last year. That was obviously very beneficial for them. So this is another theme we're seeing as these companies migrate or move to the United States, this made in America umbrella.
Absolutely. I can remember when the merger occurred with HOD8. We're talking just over a year ago. It was a merger of equals, and I think HUT's market capitalization at that point in time was about $500 million. So if you say merger of equals, you had a company that was valued at $1 billion. I looked yesterday, and it was literally fraction below the valuation of IREN, and IREN was at like 2.5 billion. I think HUT was over 2.4 billion. So you can see the benefit. I'm not saying it's all down to the US, but it has helped. You go onto these stock indices. You're an American company now, and people want to buy American stocks. And you can say all you want in Canada, but the money's going into these American miners. We're not saying they're any better at what they do. I mean, Riot and Marathon have benefited significantly from this. They were the first two big mining stocks to go onto the Nasdaq. And yes, all the Canadian miners followed that. HUT, I think, were the first Canadian miners to go onto the Nasdaq. Hive on the Nasdaq, Bitfarms on the Nasdaq. And they just haven't had that same affection from the investor community to buy their stocks in the same way. They've gone out and bought the likes of Marathon, the likes of Core Scientific, the likes of Riot, the likes of CleanSpark. These big American miners have really, really benefited from that. So I think Hive are doing a good thing. Bit Digital also have done that as well, because again, they were a foreign company. Now they're registered in the US, and they've been following all the financial requirements for quite some time. So for their changes, we're looking at effectively insignificant changes to happen because they're already fulfilling the requirements from their actual reporting position. Hive also, from a reporting position, they deal in I think 4 or 5 different countries, different currencies, different reporting. So they're used to dealing with challenges, and I'm sure going to the US they'll fulfill the requirements as well. So that's a positive news story. But yeah, I mean it's good that the miners are now starting to think about how they can benefit from this. You go onto the Russell 2000, the Russell 3000. I mean, look at MicroStrategy now going onto the Q. Is it the triple Q?
Yep.
Investment banks and investors buying into these indices as a fund, they have to buy the basket of all the stocks on that fund. So that's what capital is pushed into the company then, because that they're on that indice, they have to be purchased.
Yeah.
You can't turn around and say, I just want those 5 stocks there and leave the other 995 stocks to one side. All 1,000 stocks have to be purchased. So this is a real benefit. And we'll start seeing, this occur, as these stocks get the authority to domicile in the US, and the impact it has on those stocks then going forward. Because I'm sure the marketing campaign will start for the likes of Hive, and we'll get more information from from the chairman and the CEO who are coming on the podcast later today. We're interviewing probably in a couple of hours' time. So we'll ask, that'll be certainly one of the questions we ask. What are you going to do once it occurs in terms of marketing this, and what are the benefits that you expect to achieve?
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Most definitely. And a great example of that was really with the ETFs. The Grayscale GBTC Trust, that was up and running in Canada for years before the ETFs in the United States, but never had anywhere close to the amount of interest. And then, as you just said, Anthony, as soon as those ETFs opened up in the United States, which is the financial hub of the world, all of a sudden tens of billions are flowing in. That's exactly that kind of pressure or capital pressure that you see with these companies as well. Now, with that being said, we've talked about what the companies are doing in the United States to prepare for the incoming administration. I wanted to also talk about what the states themselves are doing, Anthony. So we've had Dennis Porter on a few times talking about what the Satoshi Action Fund has been doing in preparation for this strategic Bitcoin reserve, and obviously the state level policy as well. There's now 8 states that have put forward a strategic Bitcoin reserve policy or bill, Anthony. So just a tremendous amount of activity at a state level before Trump has taken over at the federal level.
Yeah, no, great to see. And you're talking states, big states like Florida, Alabama, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and the biggest state in terms of Bitcoin mining, and literally in terms of energy, are like a country on its own, Texas. Now, we did hear there was, even more states are looking this. I saw a post recently, I think it was up to 11 states are thinking this way. So that's literally 20% of all US states are now focusing to push a strategic reserve bill through. And we know that the incumbent administration are also looking to push for a strategic reserve at the level as well, at the US level as well. So this is all positive news. Interestingly, we've just seen updates of Donald Trump at the New York Stock Exchange. And, we were there, fortunately, to be at the Nashville conference when he came out, and spoke at the Bitcoin conference about, his awareness of Bitcoin and the benefit and where he expected Bitcoin to be. And even since then, he wants all Bitcoin to be mined in the US. Well, I think at the moment, he's got 40% of the Bitcoin mining in the US. So maybe there's a push to grow that. And he's also interested in making, trying to get the energy prices down, which will only benefit, again, US miners mining Bitcoin. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to mine Bitcoin using the cheapest energy. And one thing about mining companies, irrespective of where they've resided, they are prepared to leave jurisdiction and go and hunt down that cheapest energy. We've even seen miners move to different continents. So even some of the North American miners have moved to Europe, to South America, to the Middle East. I mean, of all the places to mine Bitcoin, I mean, that would be the last place on earth with the temperatures at like 50 degrees in the summer. But, a number of companies have made it work in Abu Dhabi and doing really well. So there is no stopping. Africa is now probably the next big place where Bitcoin is taking off. In terms of the fact they've got an abundance of renewable energy over there. They've got some massive dams and lots of renewables in terms of solar. Companies are going over there and saying, look, we can give you revenue for this energy and push that back into the communities that you wouldn't normally. You're not using all the energy at your availability. So we'll take the energy off you, that the abundant energy off you, and pay you, and that money goes back into to make the community do well. So it's a win-win. So the mining companies out there benefit from cheap energy, and the communities benefit from this influx of revenues that they would never have got. So that positive news story is feeding through, and it's happening all across different countries in Africa and across the rest of the world. So if Donald Trump says he wants to get the energy price down, that's amazing. I got my energy bill today, Bryce, believe it or not, and my power costs I convert it into US dollars because I knew obviously some people wouldn't be able to do that calculation of pounds into sterling. In US currency, I'm paying 29 cents a kilowatt hour for my energy in the UK. So in terms of me mining Bitcoin, that'll be a no.
I think we're paying, I want to say 7 or 8 cents Canadian here. I just got mine too, and energy's cheap, but that's great, Anthony. You bring up the fact Donald Trump, he's talked drill, baby, drill. He's talked about all types of different power, setting up old power plants, and realistically, any new power generation coming into the grid is a benefit to the Bitcoin miners. So phenomenal to see not only the policy change, but also the structural and the infrastructure changes coming into play to really help these miners out as well. Again, with that mission of having a stranglehold on the global Bitcoin supply and production in the United States. Now, another thing we've seen more on the financial instrument side of things, again, in the United States, Coinbase is now trialing Bitcoin backed loans for their US customers only. So, this is really just the first step into the full adoption of Bitcoin into the banking system itself. So, that was a great example. And then another interesting one, Anthony, on the other side of the coin here, the CEO of New Market Capital talking about how they're using Bitcoin backed loans to actually reduce the risk for the bank itself. So, the way I understand this is imagine you get a mortgage for a home loan for $500,000. Maybe the bank goes out and purchases $10,000 or $15,000 of Bitcoin. And if that loan ever defaults 30 years from now or 25 years from now at the loan maturity, that Bitcoin is obviously going to be much more valuable and therefore reduce the risk or offset the potential default risk of that loan.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of miners have looked into this, and we've actually got a CEO coming onto the channel next week. We've got Jamie McCaverty, who's the CEO of Cormint, and they took out a Bitcoin-backed loan, and really good idea for him to do that. Bitcoin rising, it worked really well for him, and we'll get him to explain it in more detail so that people can understand the benefits of this, because that's a real life example. And we've also seen other miners do this as well. I mean, I know Galaxy were offering loans backed by Bitcoin to other mining companies. So they offered loans to Bitfarms, I think to Hut 8, and also to Argo Blockchain. And again, if Bitcoin's rising, it's a good thing to have. And if you think about, we say, oh, why do mining companies, why are you going into debt like that? If you're going into you're going into debt and you're able to not spend your Bitcoin or exchange your Bitcoin for cash, and that Bitcoin appreciates. That's why you don't do it. That's why you go through to the debt market. You pay interest, and the appreciation of Bitcoin covers all your interest payments and everything else. So it's a positive way of looking at it. But yeah, great to welcome Jamie McCaverty onto the podcast next week. He'll give us an update about what that one of the biggest non-public mining companies out there, and we'll get his view on the sort of landscape at the moment from his position. He's a miner in Texas, so looking forward to meeting him.
Yeah, so am I. That'll be the first time having him on the podcast. We're actually having a number of new companies and CEOs on over the next couple months as well. And speaking of loans, I remember Marathon just talked about loaning out some of their Bitcoin as well. So we're starting to see all different variations of this, but the general consensus is more financial instruments, more adoption, more versatility for Bitcoin itself. And ideally, for people who are long-term hodlers like ourselves, Anthony, potentially able to unlock some of that value of our
Yeah.
Bitcoin reserve to use in real time. So a great product. Looking forward to hearing more about that. So that wraps up this portion of today's video, Anthony, talking about the adoption we're seeing, the activity in the United States, the policy in the United States, and some of these financial instruments that are now coming to fruition. The final piece we wanted to touch on, Gryphon Digital Mining, they've been fairly active in the new year here with press releases, coming out with yet another one just 2 days ago.
Yeah, they've announced a non-brokered offering just under $3 million. And within that, the management team and the majority board have participated in this offering. So just to explain a bit more detail, they basically signed a non-brokered offering, which will bring total proceeds of approximately 2.85 million. It saw 100% participation from the management team and the majority of the board members, which really, from an investor point of view, demonstrates, the internal confidence of the company's direction. They issued the third-party investors about 6.3 million shares at 40 cents a share, with accompanying warrants exercisable at $1.50 per share. The management and board purchased 629,000 shares at 51, just over 51 cents, 51.6 cents per share, and they also have accompanying warrants exercisable at $1.50 a share. And this, represents an initial step towards Gryphon's recently announced expansion plans, which we've talked about on the previous podcast, the HPCI asset in Alberta, which, in the future can scale up to 4 gigawatts, and the agreement for the natural gas assets at British Columbia, which again, scalable to 1 gigawatt. That was announced in December. We hope that we're going to get Steve on, the CEO, on next week. So we've reached out to him. He's agreed to come on the podcast, and he can talk more about all these updates, because they've brought out 4 or 5 updates literally in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So good to see them getting information out there. We'll get him on the podcast, get him to give us a bit more colour to those updates, so that shareholders get it firsthand from Power Mining Analysis.
That's excellent. Now, my question for everyone watching here, I went to an event last night, a Bitcoin meetup, actually through the Orange Pill app, and we got talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. My guess, Anthony, is Trump and the administration have been virtually silent on this since Nashville and Senator Loomis came out with that initial bill. We've seen a lot of activity with Dennis Porter and the state level, but at a federal level, virtually silent. My intuition is saying if you actually planned on buying a substantial amount of Bitcoin, the last thing you would want to do is talk about it a bunch before you actually do that. So my personal opinion here, not financial advice, is we may see rapid, quick action on the strategic Bitcoin reserve front in the first week of Trump's presidency. I was talking about this with people last night. There was a ton of different opinions on it. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Let us know what you think will happen next week with Trump's first day in office or first week in office, if it will have any impact on the SBR or on the Bitcoin mining stocks. So with that being said, let us know below. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here in a few hours for Hive.